each consonant of a root or a stem is called a radical. And Voss is talking about the conjunction of radicals that when you're thinking etymologically, what does Kodesh mean? What does holiness connote? And the first is to take the radicals of a root kadash, to shine, from which is formed the adjective for new, and it would render the sense of a new thing shining forth. And that would get to the active sense of holiness pretty well. But Voss says that's not the best way to do it. He says you could take the derivation from a root group having for its first radicals the combination of Kof, Aleph, and Dalet. And what inheres in the idea of that is a cutting or a separation. And Voss says that's the better root conception of holiness, because it helps us recognize holiness is all about the fundamental ontological separation of God from the creature. Voss uses terms like the divine aloofness or the divine majesty. And the idea, before it's an ethical idea, which Voss talks about later in this chapter, it's first and foremost, it brings into view the idea of God in his being, set apart in his majesty above all that is created, distinct from it. And so this is, once again, I know this is a leitmotif that we keep seeing, but it's there in Reformed biblical and Reformed systematic theology, is that it's a wonderful way to render the creator-creature distinction. And the holiness of God is going to bring into view his intrinsic separation from and exaltation over all that is made. And so it's really, I think if you polled people, maybe not from the Voss group, but outside of our Voss group, or maybe just general evangelical census, what do you think of when you think of holiness? Typically, I think the movement would be to talk about ethical purity. But Voss is saying that ethical purity is going to flow from this notion of separation, exaltation, and divine majesty. And so he makes a comment that it's easier to subsume all that pertains to the idea of holiness under the concept of separation, um, majestic exaltation above creatures. From that, Voss says, flows the accompanying or sister conception of ethical purity. And so I really think he's off to a really helpful way of framing this, Camden, so that we're not first thinking about an ethical consideration. We're first thinking about something ontological, metaphysical, or theological.